What is a transistor? Well, in the most basic of terms, a transistor is really a resistor, which has a value that changes based on the input signal. And the resistance change is also transformative. Now, transformative means proportional to the input. We'll get into that in a second. Now, to better understand a transistor, let's quickly look at what a diode is and what it does. Now, the diode is a component with two values of resistance depending on current direction. When current flows in one direction, it has a very low value of resistance. And when current flows in the other direction, it has a high value of resistance. Well, way back in the 1930s and 40s, scientists were onto this and had enough information to try to work with semiconductors and invent something new, and that's what they did with the transistor. So the folks at Bell Labs wondered if it was possible to make a component with more than two values of resistance. Pretty much all they had at that time were vacuum tubes. Now, if you look at old stereos or old TVs, you'll see these vacuum tubes. But they were a little bit problematic. First of all, they were expensive to make, and they generated a lot of heat, and they also needed to be replaced quite frequently. So the mission of Bell Labs was to replace the vacuum tube with something else. And in the late 1940s, they did it. So now the question was, what do we call it? Well, initially they came up with the transformative changing variable resistor, or transfer conductance varistor, and that's quite a mouthful to try to sell some of those. So they shortened it to transforming resistor. Still not right. Shorten it one last time and you've got the component as we know it today, the transistor. The two most common transistors a hobbyist will use are an NPN and a PNP. Current is applied to the base terminal, and that controls the flow of charge between the collector and the emitter. Now, when you see the schematic symbol for a transistor, the arrow indicates the direction in which the positive charge will flow. Well, transistors are available in both positive and negative polarities, and that's where we get the NPN and the PNP. An NPN is kind of like a switch, which is normally open. It will not conduct until current is applied to the base, and then technically it's on. PNPs act in the opposite way. They actually reduce the flow in relation to the base current. Now I'm going to show you an easy way to check transistors using your multimeter. Now this is for NPN and PNP transistors. You'll want to set your multimeter to the ohm setting, the highest number on your meter. Now we need to know the pinout of our transistor. With the flat part of the transistor facing towards you and going left to right, we have the emitter, the base, and the collector. And this would be an NPN transistor. Now you can always search the part number by looking closely at the number on the transistor and then just searching for the datasheet on Google to confirm the pinout. Now to start, we're going to measure the resistance between the emitter and the base. So you'll want to take your positive probe and put it in the center and your negative probe on the emitter. Now if this is an NPN, you'll have a reading on your multimeter. If it's a PNP, you won't. So you can check it by reversing the leads, putting your black lead in the middle and your red lead on the emitter. Now you should get a reading if it's a PNP. Now if your transistor conducts both ways, there's something wrong with the transistor. It's probably bad. Then we'll do the same thing with the collector. Negative on the base, positive on the collector. And you should get a reading if it's a PNP. Flip the leads around and you get a reading, and it's an NPN. And finally, we'll measure between the emitter and the collector. You should not get a reading on your multimeter. If you do, this transistor is likely bad. Here's an easy way to remember it. NPN stands for negative, positive, and negative. And PNP stands for positive, negative, and positive, as to where you would put your leads for your multimeter. So to sum it all up, a transistor is a resistor with a changing value. If you missed any of my other Kipkay tips, click the end cards on the screen to check those videos out. More Kipkay tips next week. Thanks for watching.